And now Thomas DeSchutter with his talk entitled We Affirm and Act. Thomas.
Presenting the award for.
That's awesome. The applause, yes. I don't know what to do now. How do I live up to that? I want to start by just reflecting on last week's service. I just thought it was fantastic. The music was amazing, having our vocalists come up and share and sing, and having Lawrence and his son come up and share their musical gift. I apologize for this week's service in advance. It's back to normal, yeah, exactly. In preparing for talks, I find it very interesting that, just to give you a little insight of how it works for me in doing this, is I usually get a text on Wednesday morning from Patricia saying, do you have a talk title? And then I'm like, and then I scramble to figure out, what am I going to talk about? And then I present a title. And the challenge of that is that between Wednesday and Sunday, I have no idea where I'm going to be mentally, spiritually, because if I'm like you guys, and I think we're all the same in this, is every day is like a whole new world, right? So it's funny to me to have to give a talk title because people want that, and then to try to put together something that might speak to that. And so what I'm also amazed at is how stuff comes up that can support that talk title. And I'm curious about it. Is it because stuff comes up to support that talk title? Or is it that I make it mean that it's going to support that talk title? Like which one is it? Do I project onto it this idea that, oh, this will fit for, we affirm and act. And so therefore now I'm like, oh, it's so divine. God just speaks through me in these moments and it all just transpires and life is so beautiful. And I'm not sure which one it is, but when I get to know which one it is, I will let everybody know what I've discovered in the world of talk titles and if that works. However, having said that, there were some instances that came up this week that supported the idea of we affirm and act. And I will take us in, I have this fascination with Genesis from the Hebrew scriptures and the beginning, and the idea of what the authors, what the writers are trying to get across. And what I've uncovered in all of my seminary classes is that the Bible is a collection of stories from writers throughout the course of time, and what they're trying to do is figure out what the heck we are, why we do the things we do. How can we frame our lives? How can we frame our thinking in a way that allows us to move through life powerfully? And so when I think of Genesis, I first think about that idea of something above the water moving across and begins to shine light. And so when I think of that, I think in terms of when I'm in my darkest days, I'm living way down here. I'm in fear, right? I'm in doubt. I'm in judgment. Everything's kind of ugly. However, when I'm not in that state and I'm rising above, I do have that sense of being above and being able to conjure up something. So I start with Genesis thinking about that. And then the next part is every part of Genesis, of the creation story, ends with, and it was good. And so that brings me to Unity's first principle, that God is good. And I'm thinking that must be where they got that from, is that in all of the story of creation, it's always ends in, and it was good. So we are inherently good. If we are made, therefore, in the image of this creation, which is somebody trying to figure out why we're here, what we're about, then we must be inherently good. And then comes that battle, right? That ongoing battle we have. I don't know, is anybody with me on this, of between good and the darkness that we can be in? Whether that darkness is out at somebody else or just our own internal battle of darkness. But when we're in that space of good, we're actually above that, right? We're able to climb above. And so when I think of the Hebrew scriptures, I begin to put together this idea that these writers are trying to identify who we are. They're trying to figure out all of the things that we do. And now we have something that's 5,000 years, and it's still with us today. Our laws, our society, in so much of it is built on the stories that come out of the Hebrew scriptures. And what's interesting about it is before they wrote this text, before this text was put together, we had a whole bunch of different cultures on earth that had multiple gods. So there was a god that was in charge, but then there was these under gods, and then there was these under gods below them, and then maybe some people were gods. And it was the Hebrews that first really put together this monotheistic series of teachings where there is only one God, one source. And that's what we teach here at Unity, is that there's only one source. And I don't see it as, I struggle a little bit with the reading of the Bible on this, and maybe this is the same for you, that whenever they refer to God, it's like this thing out there. And it's not. It's in all of us, and it is all of us combined. It is this substance that moves around that all of creation stems from. That's what that is for me. And so they wrote these texts, they put them together, and we still have them at play today. So if we look at We Affirm and Act, that is maybe one of the greatest affirmations that we have as an example of what can happen when you affirm something and you believe it and you live into it. Something like that has the ability to last for 5,000 years and still be relevant today. That's the thing that I kind of ponder about the most, is that how is that still relevant today? How have we not moved much further beyond that same conversation? Why am I here? What is all of this for? And how do I be and act inside of it all? Does anybody else ponder that for themselves? Yeah. Yeah, and Jim, what about you?
Yes.
And have you figured it out for yourself yet?
Not at all. Not at all.
So I don't really see the Bible as this religious book. It's been construed that way, and in my opinion, it's been misrepresented that way. It's been used as a tool to better some people's lives or to better some. However, I don't see it as this religious context. I see it as a collection of stories that we can pull from and begin to understand what was going on back then is still relevant today. There's so much of it that's political, and yet so much of what we see back there, the haves and the have-nots, the structure of society, the who's going to support the less than, the people that don't have it all. How are we going to take care of those that can't fend for themselves? Is that not the same conversations we're having today? Is that still not relevant today? How is it that over this 5,000 years we haven't figured that out yet? In the work I do with money, one of the things that I've really come clear on, and that's from doing abundance programs, is that money is not the source of my supply. And there's so many that still look at money as the source of supply, that there's something outside of them that could actually determine who they are or what they are. And I struggled with that for a long time. And I think I still do. I still have days where none of this makes any sense to me. However, when we can begin to get within ourselves and to understand that there is one source, that there is one substance from which we all pull from, we are all part of, then we can live from the inside out. And when we live from the inside out, the outside world can't really do much to us if we're strong in those roots. And so I think about what Lawrence had to say last week, and I have listened to his talk, I think 4 times now since last Sunday. Because as he spoke, I was sitting back there thinking, man, I wish I could talk like that. The profound words he had, especially around his teachings, to be generous. And he compared generosity to the great cedar tree. And so I was thinking about the cedar tree in that, because I wanted to try to be like Lawrence, right? Because I was like, that guy's he's now the gold standard for me of how to deliver a talk where we just take what's right around us and our own culture and we bring that to life. And so I was thinking about the cedar tree and how he reflected it on his generosity, but I was just thinking about it in terms of growth and how, it's so simple-minded in its approach to its life. It just wants to grow. And so as I thought about that, and I was always thinking of growth as in the height of the tree. And yet below the surface, there is also so much growth going on. It needs to dig its roots in. And I was thinking about that in terms of us. Like if I'm too much up here in my head growth, then I get lost in the world. And I need to bring growth into here. I need to root myself as well in order to grow. That is actually more important to me. The work I do in rooting myself is more important than the intellect that I develop. Because without that root, without that full understanding of who I am and why I'm here and what I'm going to be in the world, all of this up here is just a mess, at least for me. And then he talked about the salmon. And the salmon is to share. And he referred to the salmon as a relative, a noble relative. And I was like, wow, that is so, I've never considered that. I've never thought about an animal in our midst that was a noble relative. And so I started to think about the salmon, and I thought about its desire to spawn. In school, they taught us about the spawning salmon and how single-minded they are, how that drive, that instinct is so embedded in them, they can't do anything about it. And so I was thinking, like, how do I get in touch with that within myself to truly know who I am? And what if we were all to do that? What if we were all to get to truly know who we are and our purpose here and what we can serve, how we can share of ourselves with others? And then he talked about the mountain goat. And I was hoping Lawrence was here this morning because I let him know that I have a couple of goats and I'm still struggling with the whole mountain goat thing because our goats do not occur to me as these great givers. He spoke of the mountain goat and its willingness to give of its wool, its home, its heat for us. And in his words, there was so much affirming of who he was and who his people are and who he is in the world today. And then with that affirming comes his actions. And he spoke, the last one he touched on was to be called upon. That he had a calling to be called upon to move himself into the world in a way that spoke to others. Integrity, humility, and that it was a great privilege. And so I found myself this week in awe of his words and his teaching, and wanting to affirm those things for myself, and wanting to act at a higher level than I knew myself to be. And what a gift that was to have him come here and share that. And I wanted to put this in the context of unity, of our teachings, because so much of what he said resonated with our simple 5 principles. God is, I am, I think, I affirm, I act. And every one of those 5 steps are required. Can't do one without the other. And yet, if you just took those 5 steps as basic principles for living, because unity does see God as principle, it's not a thing, it's not something, it's a principle, it's God the good, and I am in the creation of, or in the image of that, therefore I am good, and I can think and ponder about these things, and I can affirm these things, and then I can act upon these things. And that's it. It can be pretty simple. We can go throughout our daily lives pretty easily if we want to hang on to building up some structure and some ways of being and thinking. Sounds easy, right? Does everybody find that easy to do? No. It sounds easy. Exactly. It takes something from each of us, and everybody has their own threshold that they can take. But listen, here's the beautiful thing, is that when we push up against those things, that's the growth. That's the opportunity to grow, is when we're feeling challenged, when we're feeling like, oh man, this just is not working. This is a bunch of you know what. That's the opportunity to take a step back, to breathe, and say, you know what? There is a better way, and I will get through this. The more we can listen to ourselves and not the outside noise, you will find your path. And the funny thing is I believe that when you do that, you'll see that you weren't really that far off of it to begin with. But what you can bring in that moment is intentionality. You can have the intention now of being something. Maybe something a little bit greater than you know yourself to be. But that's the opportunity to grow. That's the opportunity for you to affirm and then to act. Does everybody understand an affirmation, what that looks like? Yeah, maybe? Yeah. I am are maybe the 2 most powerful words that we can put together. I start every day with a group of men where we affirm on a text thread who we are for the day. We've been doing this for 4.5 years without missing. And then at some point throughout the day, we each have the responsibility of, we now do it on video. We've moved to, instead of just texting it in, now we actually record ourselves doing our affirmation. We then watch each other's video, and at the end of it, we all affirm, yes, we are. We see each other as that, and we see each other as each other's affirmation. Yes, we are. So an affirmation could be something as simple as, I am peace. I am love. And you can live your day with that idea. And anytime you're feeling like life isn't working, you can just take a step back and come back to your affirmation, I am. And find your roots on the ground with your I am better than this moment, whatever that looks like. Because that's usually when we need it. Is when life is lifing us. Does everybody understand that? You know, when life is lifing us, it's just coming at us. We're not in control. It's like, stop the ride. I want to get off. That's when we can put these tools to work. So I invite you now to join me as we take a few moments And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes with me, if you're comfortable, and just begin to center and relax. And there's two things I want to do here. One is I want to read a unity affirmation for who we hold ourselves out into the world as. And then I'll ask you to affirm something for yourself for today. So if you're so inclined, you can put your left hand on your belly. And if you breathe in through your nose, you'll notice automatically that your belly will rise and fall as you breathe. And I invite you to just bring that centering into your breath, into your belly at this time, and just allow my words to be your words. And I'll read for you Unity's statement of social action position. Webster defines the word unity as the state of forming a complete and pleasing whole. At this time in the evolution of the planet and the lives of human beings upon it, the task of forming a complete and pleasing whole is imperative for positive evolution and harmonious existence for all. This perspective has seemingly been lost on our wholeness, our oneness, our sameness as a human race. We must now remember more than ever that we have much more in common than that which divides us. The Unity movement stands for and will tirelessly work for harmony, so all people may know the freedom of peaceful expression, so they may know their own inner worth and essential contribution to the whole of life. Where there are divisions of opinions, beliefs, and perspectives, Unity embraces curiosity, exploration, and expanded awareness of the gifts of diversity. Where there is the fear of the other, Unity stands for inclusivity and peaceful acceptance of another's right to create the life of his or her choosing. Where there is oppression and hatred, we stand for justice and understanding, for extending compassion, kindness, and forgiveness to restore balance. Where there is discrimination, we stand for inclusivity and equality. We pledge to be an advocate for the well-being, respect, and civil freedom of every human being. Any proposal or action that seeks to discriminate against individuals or classes of individuals based on prejudiced, stereotypic profiles of national origin, class, creed, race, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, or gender identity is in opposition to the core beliefs and values established by our founders. We choose unity in harmony with the divine spirit. We stand so we may live in spiritually awakened world that is continually evolving. This is our prayer and our decree. Through our actions, we let it be. Now that, to me, is a powerful affirmation, and it takes action. And so I invite you in this moment to embrace the words, I am, and put whatever words call to you after that to be a stand for today or for many days ahead. I am, and you complete the sentence. I am. I am. Allow that to resonate within you. Now join me on a nice deep breath into our bellies. Let it go. You can start every day with an I am statement. Can take 8 seconds, can take 5 minutes, however long you like. And I invite you to do that for this week. Try it on for the next 7 days, to just begin in the morning with I am. Whatever comes in, don't fight it. Don't try to be clever and figure it out and like, oh, I got to be this or that. Just allow it to flow and be that. And every time that day you're feeling a bit out of touch, you can just come back to it. Takes a breath and a moment. Namaste.